Hello, everyone. Again, this is the Getting Started workshop for the Quiz and Survey Master plugin. So let me run down and say hi to everyone here. We have Pam from Tampa. Pam, I recall we have a support ticket open for you. I want to say I emailed you a couple days ago. Let me know if you didn't get that email, and I can reach back out to you right after this webinar. Kate. Hello, Kate. Hello, Paul. Hello, Jim. Hello, Edgar. Welcome, everyone. And I am from Jacksonville, Florida area, if you're familiar with that. It's a nice 75-ish out. So it's a beautiful day outside. So hopefully everyone else is having wonderful weather as well. So let's make sure my screen is up. Good to go. So Quiz and Survey Master, glancing at those who registered for the webinar, I believe all of you are already using Quiz and Survey Master, so I won't bother too much with the back end. But essentially, Quiz and Survey Master is being used by about 15,000 websites right now. It's used to create any type of survey or quiz, ranging from a lead quiz, such as a carbohydrate tolerance quiz, all the way to exams for air conditioner technicians and learning Spanish exams, all the way to customer feedback surveys and post-sale surveys. So pretty much any type of survey and quiz you can think of are being used by this plugin. And the original version was created back in 2009. Though it's come a long way since then. It wasn't really started active development until about 2014, towards the beginning of 2015. And since then, it's gone on to now power approximately 35,000 quizzes and surveys across the web, resulting in about 5 million results. So if you haven't installed Quiz and Survey Master already, you can find it via the Add New link in the Plugins menu of your WordPress dashboard. You can just search for Quiz and Survey Master, and you should be able to find it from there. So to jump into this, the first thing I want to mention, a lot of people get confused by the terms quiz and survey, mainly because throughout the plugin, we kind of use that term interchangeably. The plugin itself doesn't really notice a difference between quiz and surveys. There's no really distinction when it comes to the actual plugin itself. It actually treats all of them identical as just a form with different options. Quiz or survey, those are used interchangeably. So don't worry if it just says quiz or it just says survey and you're trying to do the other. It's your options and your text that will define what you're creating, which I'll go over in more detail in just a bit. But I just want to throw that out there. Some people do get confused on that. Also, I've been working for quite some time on big version 5.0, which is hopefully coming out in the next few weeks. We'll start beta testing probably next week. So there's a lot of changes that are coming, and some changes will change from what I'll go over today, but I'll mention those as we go. But anything you do create today or in the past will still work even in the new version. Okay, so real quick, I want to run down some of the menu pages. I am using a local server, so I'm going to have a few pages that might be different than what you're currently using. So, for example, if you can see, I have a logs menu, and I also have some extra pages in the quiz and surveys menu. You should not see those in your installation. So I won't touch on what those are, but I just want to let you know if you see those in mine and you don't see those in yours, that's okay. It's just because I have a special server set up. Okay, so real quick, a brief overview of the pages that are installed once you activate your plugin. We have quizzes and surveys, which we'll go into in just a moment. That's where you actually create and edit. Monique, you're saying your screen is not in focus. Is anyone having trouble seeing the screen? Let's see. I'm using YouTube Live, and I don't see any options for quality here. Let me just glance through some of these options real quick. According to the screen sharing options that I'm looking at, I'm on the highest quality settings. So we shall see. Hopefully it clears up for you in just a moment. Oh, yes. Thank you. I didn't even. Yes, on your video player, in the bottom right corner where there's full screen, there's also a little gear, which you can click on to choose on quality and choose the highest quality setting. And let me know if that helps out. Okay, that seems to work for some of you. Okay, thank you. I didn't even think to mention that. Thank you so much for mentioning that in the chat there. Okay, jumping back into what I was saying. So quizzes and surveys, we'll go into just a moment. That's where you actually create the quiz and survey. The results is where you'll go to view the results, and you can view the overall results, and you can also view the individual results. The settings, there's a bunch of settings there that most people very rarely actually have to use, but we will touch on that towards the end of this webinar just in case. Stats, right now it's a really bare bones chart of just how many times your quizzes and surveys have been taken. Eventually, we will be adding some more features to the stats page, not in this upcoming version, but we do plan on revising that page in the version after that. Add-on settings, if you use any of the add-ons, that's where you can go to edit the global settings. I'm not going to touch on many of the add-ons here. Everything I show you today can be used in the free version. I'll mention a couple of them as we go, but nothing required for anything we go over today. But if you do install any, the settings will start off in the add-on settings. Lastly, the help page it's a very useful page for a variety of reasons, but if you ever come across anything you don't fully understand how to use in this plugin, on the help page, it will redirect you to our documentation as well as our online academy. So we have our documentation. We have quite a bit of documentation, which we try to cover most of the things. We have a frequently asked questions page, and I try to add to that whenever I get a very common question. I also have a common theme conflict fix page. As some themes, there are various minor tweaks that can be done to resolve any issues. So hopefully anything you have trouble with, you can find in our documentation, but if not, I do try to update it frequently. And then also, like I said, the online academy, we have our previous workshops recordings that are listed there, as well as a few micro videos, and I'm going to be adding a few more shortly. So hopefully between the two, there's usually quite a bit of resources there. Also from the help page, you can submit the support form here. This is the ideal method of contact if you're trying to reach out to us, mainly because it includes the system information down at the bottom here, which is very useful when we're trying to debug any issue that you're experiencing. Okay, so hopping back over to our quizzes and surveys page. I'm on a very tiny display right now, so yours may look a little different. This column may actually be a column towards the right as opposed to underneath, but that's just because I'm on a tiny screen. So depending on what you're on, it may look like this, or this column may be to the right. So we'll jump in real quick to create a test. Let's do test survey. And quiz and survey is used interchangeably, so you can call it a quiz or a survey and then have grading on or not, or rearrange your text however you see fit, so that the name and the actual term quiz or survey isn't as important as the options themselves, which I'll go over in more detail as we go forward. Okay, success. So on this page, you're going to see a table here with a few different things on it, most of which isn't going to be something you're interacting with too often. But from the left here, you can, let me see if closing that menu helps a little. There we go. And we'll widen this just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so you can edit the name of your survey or your quiz at any time using the edit name. Underneath here, if you hover over whichever quiz or survey you're looking at, that's where you can edit it. You can view the results specifically for that quiz or survey. So for example, if you have 20 to 30 different surveys and you only want to look at results of one particular survey, you can click on this results link here. You can duplicate it or you can delete it. Over on towards the right, you can view the quiz or survey page right now by clicking this link. Since this system uses the built-in WordPress post page system, there are comments on that page. So every now and then people want to turn off the comments on the page itself and only use the comments in the quiz or survey. You can click this edit post settings to turn those comments off or change the name of the post or page itself. So going forward, we have the shortcode link. If you're not using the built-in URL system, you may be wanting to use the shortcode in a post or a page. This is the shortcode you'll want to use. If you're using Leaderboards, this would be the shortcode you use here. Less than 5% of our users use Leaderboards, so we're planning on eventually rolling that out into a standalone add-on like we've done with the certificates recently. So this column may no longer be in the free version, but it will still be a free add-on on the side. We're not going to charge for it just because we're moving it to an add-on. We're going to keep it free, but we don't want to take up all this space here and in the code since less than 5% of people are using it. So eventually, no time soon, but eventually we'll probably roll that into its own add-on like we've done with the certificates recently. And lastly, you can see how many times your quiz has been viewed and how many times it's been taken and the last time it was modified. So right now we want to go in and edit it. So let's go ahead and click on edit. So before we jump into this, did anyone have any questions on the previous, anything I've gone over so far? I know I haven't gone over too much, but just in case, feel free to drop any questions or comments in the chat, and I'll glance at that as we go. So onto the question tab. So every question within your quiz or survey is going to have a question type, and that's how the plugin understands how it should be printed or displayed. Question, I get double results, they're identical. Is that when someone submits the quiz? Are you getting two results as in like two emails, or are you getting two results in the back end? Do you already have a support ticket open? If you don't have a support ticket already open, go ahead and just send one in to my personal email at frank@mylocalwebshop.com, and that'll come right to me. Right now, I don't have anything in that inbox, so I'll surely see it, and I'll try to answer you right after this webinar. Okay, as for the questions, once you hop into the question tab here, as I was saying, there's multiple question types in the plugin. Right now, we're working on about 2 or 3 more, which we're hoping to have ready by 5.0. If not, it'll be the next version. So we have everything ranging from a small text field, which is the small open answer, to a drop-down menu, to a number-specific field, to even fill the blank. So once you get started, if you have no questions already, I want to come down. You want to choose your question type, enter in the question, and then scrolling down, we have the answer area. You can have as many answers as you want. Ideally, you probably want to have less than 5 to 10, so it doesn't get too crowded for your users, but it really depends on your quiz and survey. So we'll go ahead and just create a question here. I'll say question. Yes or no. So in Quiz and Survey Master, you have 3 different grading systems. You can either have all your questions and answers worth different amount of points. Monique, you have a question about the layout. Is that on when you use bullets? Is that when you're using one of the question types, the multiple choice one? You check out, let me see if I have that documentation open right now. There's on the common theme fixes, there's a theme fix, there's an issue with numbers and new lines. Let me see what you're referring to. Where the question number and the question are on separate lines. If that's the issue you're referring to, take a glance at this part of the documentation and let me know if that takes care of that issue. Okay, hopping back over into the questions. Like I was saying, there's the points grading system, and you can set each answer to be worth different points and then total it towards the end. Or you can have the correct incorrect system, which you can mark one of the answers or multiple answers correct. Lastly, you can have the not graded system, which most surveys will probably be not graded, but some quizzes and tests as well. So then in that case, you don't have to use either one of these columns. You can leave these completely blank if you like, if you're using that system. If you're using the points, you'd want to enter in some points. If you're using the correct, you'd want to check one of the check boxes. You can actually use both grading systems at the same time, depending on the variables you're using. The only time that the grading system itself has to be selected, and that's the one that this plugin will use, is if you're using multiple emails and multiple results pages. It'll use the score based on the grading system that you've selected, which it's a little complicated. We'll go over that in just a moment, but I just want to let you know that you technically could use both columns here. You'll probably want to use only the one that corresponds to the grading system that you've selected in the options page. Okay, scrolling down, the correct answer info. This is a great spot if you want to tell the user why something is correct. So the answer is yes, because. So if you don't need that, then you can simply leave that empty. The hint, if you have this entered, there's going to be a small hint link underneath the question, which users can get a hint from. So this is a hint. The comment field, sometimes you'll want to have comments on individual questions. So the small text field or the large text field. We don't see this used too often when it comes to the individual questions, but we'll go ahead and add it just in case for this time. The question order, there's actually a much simpler way than using it this way. This is for the older systems. But originally, you could not drag and drop the questions, so you'd have to come in every time and edit it to rearrange your questions. I definitely don't advise doing it that way, but we kept the option here just in case someone's still doing it that way. I'll go over the drag and drop in just a second. The required, if you want the questions required, yes or no. And then if you have a category, so we'll put this in the history category. As you add new categories, they'll be selected. You can select them from this option here. So we'll go ahead and create that. So here is our question. So if we wanted to edit it, we could click the edit link, and it would come down here, and we could edit. We can duplicate, which we'll go ahead and duplicate here. Duplicate. Or we can delete it. So now that we duplicated it, we can sit here. If these were different questions and we did not just duplicate it, we could sit here and drag and drop and rearrange them. That is the best way to rearrange your question order. So if you have multiple questions you want to quickly rearrange, you would drag and drop and then click the Save Question Order button here. So we'll go ahead and delete that extra one. So lastly, you can come over here, you can search for a question. Since we only have one, there's not really anything that we're going to be able to search for besides our one. But if you have 20 to 50 questions or even more, this is very useful for quickly finding the question you're looking for. It will search, you can search by the question types. So if you're searching for only a particular type, you can search by that. You can search by the category or even text in the question itself. Also, many users have been asking for a question bank-like system. We still don't have an ideal system created for that yet, but we have added this option here, which allows you to import a question from another quiz or survey. So in this case, we only have one survey, so it's only showing us the question from the survey we're in right now. But if you had multiple surveys and multiple quizzes, you can come here to import questions from a separate quiz or survey. All right, that is it for the questions tab. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. If not, we'll hop over to our text tab. Okay, over on, Monique, can you make lists in the correct answer field? Monique, can you elaborate a little bit more on your question about the correct answer lists? Okay, while she's typing that up, we'll go ahead and get started on the text tab. So The Quiz and Survey Master plugin uses template variables. So in the easiest description is essentially if you put one of these variables somewhere, whenever the quiz gets loaded, it'll output whatever the description next to these variables are. So for example, if we were using the username variable, whenever the results page gets loaded with the user's name. So that's essentially how this works. There's a few that are a little bit more complicated, but we do have an entire page of documentation over on our documentation page, the template variable system. It goes over the usage and has examples for every single variable. So if you ever have any confusion with that, this would be a great place to go. Okay, scrolling down to the message templates, there's a variety of templates that you can edit for the quiz, as well as some of the fields near the bottom here. Most of these are for before the results page, so they have a limited amount of variables that you can use. For example, in the message displayed before the quiz, you can only use these 2 variables, mainly because all the other variables don't have content yet, since the user has not started taking the quiz. So essentially, you'll want to enter some text in any of these templates that you want to use. This template here, this would be displayed above the quiz, or if you're using pagination, it would be used on the very first page. If you keep this template empty and you do not have contact information being asked, or it's being asked at the end, then your first page would be a question and not any text. In this case, it will be this text here, since we have text entered in there. If you want text right before the comments box, if you have that enabled, that would be this template here. If you want text right before the submit button, that would be this template here. This would be a great spot to have a call to action. If you, for example, something like find out your results for this quiz by clicking this button below, or something along those lines. Or if you are using one of our email list integrations, this would be a good spot to maybe ask them to subscribe, or remind them by submitting their quiz they are subscribing, something along those lines. This would be another option for that spot. This one down here, this is message displayed if user has tried to quiz too many times. There's an option on the options tab, which you can set to limit the amount of times a user can take the quiz. For example, you want the user to only be able to take the quiz 3 times. You can set that option to 3, and then come here and edit this text. And this is the text that will be shown when they try to edit the quiz tab, or quiz page. I'm sorry. Monique, you were asking if you put some answers, they don't see all answers in the same line. I'd like to make a list. Is that possible? Not at the moment, Monique, but I'll definitely add that to the feature request list about making lists in the answers. That's an interesting idea. Let's see, your next question in the text tab, you have a for the questions answers variable. That's a, let me just go ahead and scroll down to that one, because that one is a confusing one. So essentially, this option here allows you to edit the template used for that variable. That variable can be used on your results page, but it's not the only thing you can use on your results page. And we'll go over in results page in just a moment. However, you can do quite a bit of content on the results page, and then in that case, this questions answer variable will only be one piece of the results page. And then you can come here to edit the template used for that variable. So for example, if we're not using comments on any, we can remove that. If we're using the correct answer info, we could enter that in. Maybe you want to say, instead of answer provided, you want to say something like you said. You could edit that template using this option here. And then on the results page, when you use this variable, it'll use this template to display every single one of the questions in your quiz. And we'll go over results pages and emails in just a moment, but hopefully that helps you with the distinction there. Let's see. For the social sharing, we have a Twitter and Facebook sharing text. You can customize both of these. This will be the text that will be shared when someone clicks the Twitter or Facebook sharing links. And then at the bottom here, we have some very smaller templates, such as the name field, business field, the submit button. Maybe you could change it to send feedback, which we use on our post-sale survey. You can change the comments and the buttons if you're using the pagination. And so back up here, there's a few more options on the Options tab. For example, you can require users to be logged in. This would be the text they're shown if they're not. You can set up a time frame for the quiz. So for example, if you want the quiz to only run next week, you could set that up on the Options tab, and then this would be the text that would be shown if it's not currently in that time frame. So this quiz doesn't start next week or something along those lines, and that would be shown if it's not currently in that time frame. You can set the quiz to have a total limit. So for example, you can set, if it's a survey and you only want 500 responses, you can set that option to 500, and then anyone who tries to load that survey after 500 would receive this message here. Okay, and that is it for the text tab. Does anyone have any questions on the text tab? Let me hop back over to chat here. I see your screen small and very blurry. Can I change that? Yes, if you're looking at the video player, in the bottom right corner, there's a gear, and you can use that to change the quality. And then also there's a full screen button, and that will help. That will make the video full screen to make it easier to see as well. And Monique, as for the question answers, I think you said not yet in regards to that. When we go to the results page, I'll give a few better examples of how you would use that, so hopefully that would clear that up for you. Jumping over to the Options tab. I went over quite a few of these settings already as I went through the questions and text, but essentially, here's the option to set up which grading system you're using. This is the one to set if the user needs to be logged in or not. This is how you would set up the pagination. You can essentially set up how many questions do you want per page. So in this case, we're going to do 1 question per page. You can set up a timer. So for example, we want 10 minutes, and the user only have 10 minutes to complete the quiz or survey. We just rolled out a small update to this, so now I'd like to think it's almost impossible for the user to find a way around this, but before there was a variety of ways that users were trying to find to get around the timer. They tried to, the most unique one was they were copying the URL of the quiz, closing that tab, reopening it, and then pasting in the URL. That's now fixed as well. If they stop the quiz or leave the page and come back to it, it'll start off with wherever they left off. So all the loopholes should be closed, but if you do find one, go ahead and let us know, and we'll get that fixed. But at this point, they should all be closed, hopefully at this point. So how many times can a user take this quiz? That's the option I was speaking of earlier. And then how many total entries can this quiz have? So I mentioned those on the text tab. How many quiz should be loaded? If you have, for example, maybe 30 to 40 questions, you can actually have it set to only load 10. So every time the user goes to that quiz or survey, it'll only show 10 out of your total question pool of the quiz. Here's the time frame option that I was referring to over on the text tab. The random questions, you can set it to be random questions, random answers, or randomize all of them. The contact information, you can set to either ask at the beginning of the quiz or at the end of the quiz. This one's a little confusing. So essentially right now, logged in user comes to your quiz or survey. It's going to try to use the name and email and phone number and business from their user profile. So if you have this set to yes, it'll pre-populate the text fields, the contact fields at the beginning of the quiz or at the end of the quiz with that information. So for example, if we scroll down a little bit here and if we say we ask for name, then in that name field, it'll automatically pull the user's display name from the user's profile. Same thing with email and business and phone number. If you set this to no, it will hide those fields, but still use that information from the user profile. Whereas if you click yes, the fields will show up, and it'll just have that information already entered in there, but the user could edit it. So hopefully that makes sense. If it's still a little confusing, let me know, but that's essentially yes to have the field show with the user profile information in it, and no to not have those fields show, but still use that information in the results. And then down here, these are the 4 contact information fields we currently have: name, business, email, phone number. You can have it yes to show up, require, or no. I mentioned earlier we're working on a big update 5.0. So one of the big changes is going to be this contact section here. One of the major feature requests we get quite a bit is essentially people want to change some of these or add new fields, such as age or location. They want to change maybe the business into a drop-down instead of a text box. So in 5.0, we're going to have an entire tab set up for the contact information, and you'll be able to fully customize it. Pretty much any of these fields you could drag and drop, rearrange, change to different text types or field types, add new fields, remove fields. So it should hopefully help any of those people that want to extend this area. Like I said, it's going to be in 5.0. Hopefully beta will be available next week for those that want to beta test it. And anything you set up now will still work in the new version, but it'll just be a lot easier to manage. Scrolling down towards the bottom here, we have the comments. Instead of comments on each question, you could have comments at the end of the quiz. That would be this option here. If you want to have your questions numbered, that would be this option here. If you want to display the social media links, that would be this option here. Now these two at the bottom are a little bit more complicated. This one, if you have multiple choice information, or multiple choice questions, you can have it set up to disable the question as soon as someone selects an answer. So for example, if they selected our question we created earlier, that was yes or no, they selected yes, that they will not be able to change their answer after that. And then lastly, this last option are for those who are familiar with CSS. Essentially, you can have it, if you set this to yes, as a user goes through and selects questions and answers, it'll dynamically add a class for incorrect, correct. So for those who are CSS and design savvy, you could theoretically, when someone selects an answer such as yes in our question we created, you can highlight it with green and then show the incorrect answers as red, or anything along those lines using CSS. Eventually, we're going to roll out a few more template styles on our style tab that'll also use that feature, but right now it's limited to only those who know CSS who can build that custom, but that would be this option here. So any questions on the options tab? Let me hop over to chat here. Kate, my quiz is not showing the contact info on the landing page. Is that a catch? No, it should still show the contact info as long as you scroll down here. Make sure you have the should we ask. Make sure that's yes or required for the ones you want to have. Make sure over here, this option that I was explaining earlier, if you don't see it when you're logged in, maybe try logging out and going to your landing page and seeing if it's asking for information there. It might be something with this option where you have it set to no. So you might want to first log out, see if you can go to that landing page, see if the contact fields are showing up or not. If they are, then it's probably this option. If they're still not showing up, then there must be something else. But they should be working on the landing page as long as you have the yes or required set to those options. Now I'm going to skip the leaderboard tab since less than 5% of people use that. If you do have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. The certificate tab, since that's moving to its own add-on, we're going to go and skip that as well. And we're going to hop over to the emails and results page. Okay, as for the template variables, again, please refer to this documentation over here. I know they get a little confusing because we have quite a few of them. But this lists out the descriptions and examples of usage. So it would definitely help you if you encounter any issues. So the email system, running down the top of the options here real quick, you can send an email to the user once they complete the quiz or survey. You can send an email to the admin. This box is used for what emails are being sent the admin email. You can actually do multiple emails. So for example, if we want to do support and maybe if we had a tech address, which we don't, but just hypothetically, then we would type it in just like this with a comma separating them. And now both of those email addresses would get the admin email. You can edit the from name. Right now it defaults to the default WordPress. So maybe you want to say it's from Frank, or you want to say it's from our quiz and survey master, anything along those lines. You can edit the from address that it shows that it's coming from. And then lastly, you can add the user's email to the reply to field in the admin email. So right now, if before this option existed, you would get an email saying, in your admin email, maybe saying a user took the quiz, and it would come from this email address. And if you replied to it, you'd be essentially replying to yourself. So you would have to go into the user, find their email address, and then paste it into your email client and all that fun stuff. So essentially, this prevents all that extra steps. If you set this to yes, when the email comes to you, your admin email, the reply to field will be set to the user's email. So if you hit reply, it'll go to your user. So not everyone needs that. Not everyone's replying to the admin emails or trying to reach out to the users. That's a very handy option that we use pretty much on all of the quizzes and surveys that we use. Let me hop over to chat. Kate, you had a question on how does it know a user's email if they don't type it in? Well, if they don't type it in and they're not a logged in user, then there's no way for the system to really know the user's email. So unless you had some sort of extra custom way for it to find the user's email, essentially there wouldn't be a way the plugin would know the user's email without it being typed in or not using the user's profile. So the email sent to user, most people only need one email sent to the user and then one email to the admin. So you can pretty much start customizing these email to send fields. However, some people want to have a pass or a fail email or a few others. So for example, I just clicked the add new user email button, and now we have two emails here. So say our exam had a 70% pass, or 70% or higher gets them a pass. Anything below, they failed. So we could come here and enter in 70 and say, in this email, you passed. In this email, you failed. So now we created an email for passing users and an email for failed users. We can use the same system for the admin emails as well if we wanted to add new admin email. But that's essentially how this works. This field depends on what option you've set up for your grading system. So if you're using points, it'll use the total points. If you're using the correct score or incorrect score, it'll use the correct score of all of your questions. So sometimes you'll want a few additional emails. You can click add new user email, and you can maybe have one with you passed with flying colors, and then you barely passed, and then you failed. If you wanted 3 different emails. The system can use unlimited emails. That would probably be hard to manage if you had dozens upon dozens. So in best practice, we probably stick around to 3 or 4 at most. But technically, you could use unlimited emails if you wanted to for both user and admin emails. So any questions on the emails tab before we move on to the last tab of the results page? Let's see, Kate. Okay, no, so nothing sneaky. Not yet. I haven't come up with a sneaky way of finding the user email. Eventually, I would love to find a way, but right now I haven't come across anything that would be worth implementing. So unless there's no other questions, let's hop over to the results page because we have about 15 minutes left in the webinar. So let's try to get through these last little bit. So the results page work almost the same exact way as the emails. So essentially you can have multiple results pages. You can have a pass result page and a fail result page. So let's hop down here and do 70 again. So this one would be our pass email. That would be our fail email. Ooh, what is this here? I'm on the local server. I see what I did there. Okay. You theoretically should not be seeing this on yours. That's because I'm on the local server, and I will have to get that fixed in an update. But essentially, if you wanted to not use the built-in results pages, you could do this redirect URL. The next update we do will probably be taking out a beta. There's no known bugs with this anymore, so we'll probably be dropping the beta tag in the next update. But essentially, if you wanted to not use our built-in system for showing the pages, you could create your own page or own post to show the results on, and you would enter that URL here. So maybe we have upassed.com for whatever reason. And so now if they score above 70, instead of being shown this page, they'll be sent to upassed.com. However, the big caveat there is that you won't be able to use any of these variables on that page that you redirect them to. So that doesn't always matter to a lot of people, but it does on some cases. So that's something to think about when you're weighing whether you should use our built-in system or the redirect URL. And that's pretty much it for the results page. Real short and sweet. So, about the questions answers variable. So essentially, Monique, I think you were the one asking about that a little bit ago. Questions answers. So let's say we have our you passed text here. You passed. Wow, this small display, really? Let me wind that up. There we go. That's a little better. I'm on a very tiny screen, so hopefully this looks much better on your site when you're doing this. So let's say you passed, and then maybe we want to add maybe their score. So you scored. We'll do point score. And then we want to show them your answers. Something along those lines. So Monique, what I was explaining earlier is that, so here's your results page. You have all this, you have you passed, you want to show their point score, you have some text. That option on the text tab only lets you edit what this variable would show. So this part you still have to enter into the results page, and then you can edit the template used for this part of your results page using that option over on the text tab. So essentially that option on the text tab is a template for a small part of the results page if you're using this variable. Everything else still will come over on the results page, and the specific question answer format will be used on the template over on the text tab. So Monique, let me know if that makes sense now that we're on the results page. Oh, you have a question here. Will it show text and results page both? Okay, so if we went and took our quiz right now, which maybe we won't in just a second, but essentially when I hit the submit button, I'll get a page that says you passed and you scored and the point score and then your answers, and then I'll turn this into the template over on the text tab for each question. So if we had one question, let me go ahead and open that up. So the question answers template variable will show whatever you entered into this option once the page loads. Did I go? This option here. So this text will show up right where we put the variable, right here, for each question. So if we have one question, it'll show up once. If we have 5 questions, it'll show up 5 times, where the question will be the question, the user answer will be the answer that the user entered, et cetera, et cetera. So does that make, okay, got it, thanks. Okay, I know it's a little confusing, but if you run into any questions with it, feel free to reach out to me and I'll try to help you out the best I can. Okay, last but not least, we have about 12 minutes left. So let's hit the most important ones. The style, right now there's 5 built-in styles. Pretty much they're all the same except the color scheme. So play around and find one that most closely matches your theme. You technically can use the custom option, and you can come down here and create a custom template down here for your style, but that would only be beneficial if you know CSS. So if you don't, one of these 5 options would be your best option here. We have a couple more that I want to get to. I just haven't had the time yet to get to a few new ones, but that is on the roadmap eventually. And last but not least, let's go ahead and hop over to the preview tab so you guys can see what we just created. So like I said, here's our contact fields. Since we had that option set to yes, it's going to pull our name and email from our user profile. Here's our test question. We have it set to yes or no. Here's our hint that we put earlier. Here's our comment field. And then we're going to set yes. And we'll go ahead and hit submit. And oh, we didn't save our results page. Okay, had we saved it, we would have seen our text here. Now, if for whatever reason you come to your preview page and you make this beautiful results page, and then you go to your front end and you have your page or your post, and it looks different there, more than likely there's a theme conflict. So if you click this link here, it'll take you to that documentation that I shared earlier. We have the two most common issues there. So if hopefully it's one of those, and then you can figure out exactly what you need to do to fix it. But if not, feel free to reach out to us. We have about 2 or 3 more we'll probably be adding to that in the next few days. But other than that, it should work with pretty much every other theme right out of the box. But if not, feel free to check that link. And if not, reach out to us. Okay. So once you have a user that has taken your quiz or survey. Oh, wait, someone dropped in a question here. Rephrasing one of my earlier questions, we have a problem controlling the spacing in between the lines, mostly when we make. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. I misunderstood earlier. So and you're using the numbered list or the bullets inside the question? Or is that inside one of the answers? And no, that's not an FAQ. That's definitely not something we've come across so far. Let me inside the question. Okay, I don't think I've actually ever tried to put a numbered list inside the question before. It's the default WordPress system. We're using the default WordPress editor for the question text, so it should work out of the box, but it sounds like it's not for you. So let me, right after this webinar, let me do some testing and see if I can figure out what's going on there. And then I will reach out to you. I believe you were, let's see, I believe you already had a support ticket open, you said earlier. So let me do some testing, and then I will reach out to you and see what I can come up with in that regards. Okay, once the user has taken their quiz or survey, over on the results tab, you will find the results. So these were for some ones that I was playing with earlier. And here's the newest one that we just took now. So you can come in, you can view the individual results, which we'll hop open just so you can see what that looks like. Here's where we entered yes, and the correct answer was yes. And our contact information. And we'll hop back over here. And then if you want to, you can delete any of these results. So let's delete the one from Jeff. And then if there's a lot of them that you want to delete, you can check a whole bunch and hit bulk delete up here. You can search the results. So say we wanted to search for only ones by Jacob. We can search by Jacob, and it would only list Jacob's results. This search box here will search the names, the business, the email, the phone, and I want to say the quiz name. So if you want to bring up all the quiz results by a certain business or by users of a certain email or anything along those lines, you can search using this search box here. You can then order those results by any of these options here. So maybe you want to search by all the results by a particular business, ordered by the time, or ordered by the correct score. You could do that using these options here. Okay, only a few minutes left, so let's hop over into the last few here. So here's the global settings. Like I said earlier, very rarely do people usually have to mess with any of these over here. When you first install the plugin, it'll ask if it can anonymously track the data. If you decide to change your mind, whichever option you chose, you can come here and select or deselect that. I hope that you consider to leave that select. That's very useful for us. It tells us the percentage of people that use every single option in the plugin, which helps us better know which features to build upon or improve. So it's very beneficial. So I hope that you remember to, or would like to keep that checked. But if not, you can uncheck it here. If you want people not to be able to search for your quizzes or access a quiz archive, you would want to uncheck these options here, or check these options here to disable that. If you want to change the quiz slug, so right now, let's go to one of our demo quizzes on our site. You'll see up at the top, it's quizandsurveymaster.com/quiz/sample survey. You can change that /quiz by changing this slug here. So for example, some people have changed it to exam or survey or assessment. So that would be the option there. Earlier, we looked at the template or the results. We went over here, we went to the results page and looked at the results. You can change that page, that template, by editing this template here. So if you don't care at how long it took them to complete it, you could remove this. If you don't use the comments, you could remove this. If you want to, you can remove some of the contact info. And then by changing this template, you'll change how it's displayed on the results for the admin when you're viewing the user's results. Okay, so let's take a look at the stats real quick. Oh, question about support. Yes, Monique, I was quite a bit backlogged. Right now, I only have, I don't think I have the tab open, but I only have about 10 open support tickets. So if you have not received a response to anyone listening, feel free to reach out. And it could have gotten missed somewhere, but at the moment, it says I have 10 open ones. So, but yes, I had some personal issues and I was out pretty much all of summer. And Carrie, who used to work for us, no longer works for us. You seem to have a Dutch developer. Right now, the only person on the team is me. So there is no official person besides me. We had Carrie for a while, but she's no longer with us. And then I was out for some personal matters for a while, but I'm starting to get caught up. So the support should be much quicker these days. Our average response rate for support tickets this past 2 weeks have been less than 2 days. So that's a big improvement. I want to say that the Dutch developer you mentioned is someone who just helps out a lot, because I do see him from time to time, and then I don't see him for a while. So I'm not entirely sure, but he has been helpful before, but he is not part of the official team now. Okay, lastly is the stats tab. As I mentioned earlier, it's not too exciting, but essentially you can chart the daily, weekly, and monthly if you're very interested in how your quizzes are performing overall. This is definitely something we want to improve in the near future. It's not slated for 5.0, but maybe 5.1 or 5.2. But because I have probably 20 feature requests all about this page, so hopefully I can tackle them soon. Okay, let's see. We only have a couple minutes left, so let me just ask, is there any questions that I can go over or answer for anyone that's currently in the chat? I think I touched all the basics, and I don't want to dive into too much deeper things as we only have 2 minutes left. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I'll try to answer them. For those who did stick around, I do have the offer, which I always have for all of those who attend the webinars. Underneath the option here, or underneath the video player, you'll see a 40% off our premium plan. And I'll leave that open until Sunday, so you don't have to rush and do it today. But if you're interested in the premium plan, I do give out that to anyone that attends the workshops. So like I said, that's underneath the video player. I have a coupon code there, and that will also be emailed out to you shortly after the webinar ends. So let me know if there's anything along those lines. Oh, questions. Let's see. Feature request, ability to search the quizzes from the list of all the quizzes. I am actually shocked that has never been requested before, Pam. That is... yeah, I'll definitely create a feature request, Pam, and I would be shocked if I don't get that in by 5.0, because that is such a no-brainer. I'm surprised that I don't have that anywhere here. So yeah, I'll create that as a feature request, and I'll try to put that into 5.0 for you, Pam. 250 quizzes. Wow, I would love to hear more details about your setup. That is interesting. I'll forward that email to you. I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, the one I sent to you a few days ago about your support ticket. And when you answer that back, feel free to discuss a little bit more about your workflow. See if there's anything else we can improve to make that a little easier for you. Will there be an add-on webinar? If there's interest in it, I can do an add-on webinar. I tried to do one a while ago and only 2 people showed up. So I can definitely try to do an add-on webinar if it's something that people would find useful. So maybe we'll try to do one in the next few weeks or maybe at the beginning of December, and we'll see how many people show up. Monique, thanks for this possibility to ask questions. You're welcome. Like I said, earlier in the year, I used to do one every month, and then I had some personal issues and I was out for quite a while, but we're going to try to start doing these once a month again. And then who knows, we might do some more or less depending on how many people show up. How can one change the author of the main page? I change it, click update, and it does not change. Let me see if I can see what you're saying. Are you going to the edit post settings? Is that what you're referring to? Oh, that's not what I wanted. Stop. Okay, let's see. It should just be this author here. Is that what the one you're referring to? Over on, let me bring up my chat back. Let's see. John, where is it not changing when you change the author on this page? All right, and while John's typing, is there anyone else that has any questions? Or it is now 5 o'clock, and I said 4 to 5, so we are good to wrap up unless anyone else has any other questions. Yes, I didn't recognize your username, but yes, if the mobile app that you're using the quiz in, I would. I don't think you have an open support ticket right now, but feel free to reach out to me. I would love to see more about your mobile app because I really want to try to create a massive tutorial blog post on how you did in a similar fashion. So in case anyone else is interested, so feel free to reach out to me, and I'd love to maybe see your mobile app or learn more about it. Paul, thanks Frank for the webinar. You're quite welcome. Paul, I know we had a lot of good support last year and at the beginning of the year, and I know you had some issues that took a little longer this past time, but hopefully we'll keep getting back to better support for you. Thanks for being around for so long, Paul. I appreciate it. Back to John. Under text. John, is there any way you can reach out to me in a support ticket under edit quiz, the first tab is author. They blank. Okay, so let me hop back into under edit quiz, the first tab is author. Okay, this author field here, if this is the one you're referring to underneath the edit quiz, this is all created by WordPress. It's using their post system. So this is not a plugin element. So this should work based on your setup of WordPress. And then where it's displayed when you go to view the quiz, that text is also shown using your theme in WordPress. So if for whatever reason this isn't lining up, feel free to reach out to me as a support ticket and maybe give me a link to your quiz and maybe a screenshot of this page here and what you're looking at. And maybe we can try to debug and see what's going on there. Okay, and I believe that's everything. Pam, I will forward that email over to you. Give me about a half an hour to wrap all this up and get it up online. And then Monique, I believe you said you were going to email me to my direct line, and I'll try to get that answered to you within the half an hour. Maybe give me an hour, depending on how long it takes me to wrap everything up here from the webinar and get these emails out. And then I'll help you ladies out. And John, you as well, if you create a support ticket, I'll get back to you. I'll try to get back to you today so we can figure out what's going on there. All right, thank you so much for attending, everyone. You guys have a wonderful day. I'll try to get this recording up tonight. And if not, it'll be up tomorrow, possibly, depending on how good it came out, in the online academy. All right. You guys have a wonderful night. Goodbye.